Very well. As most of the speakers are English speakers, the panel will be held in that language. I'm sorry, David. You can speak in whatever you want. This evening's panel is called the Impact of Industrial Cybersecurity in Our Society. And we can start right now with the first question I would like to raise, which is, right now governments and organizations are concerned about cyber threats, but in which way individuals, I mean average people, can be directly affected by such industrial cybersecurity incidents? Would you like to start, please, Patrick?
So the question is about the impact of industrial cybersecurity incidents?
In our society.
In society. Well, considering that, industrial systems are the underpinning for pretty much everything we do, everything from traffic, manufacturing, our water, our power, our phones, our oil, our gas. I would say the impact will be quite large. It would probably have the biggest impact versus, for example, an email outage or a bank DOS or something like that. I would venture to guess that it's probably one of the biggest impacts we could possibly see as a civilization of any society.
Thank you. What's your opinion, Marina?
Well, hypothetically, yes, it would have a huge impact. However, to be realistic, we do not see it happening. And there are a lot of ongoing projects in Europe, in the USA, when people try to build dependencies between electricity, water. What if there have been few blackouts, not due to cyber attacks, but because of the just cascading failures. So there was a lot of system impacted, but those is inevitable. But I do not believe really in that any of the even state governments will be really taking the infrastructure down. So, however, if you start looking, the accidents are happening, and if you could see there are already Metasploits tools for cyber, for exploitation of critical infrastructure, you can buy them. So almost all of them, this SCADA pack from GLEC. So you pay money and you buy, and they contain almost all known vulnerability with executable code. So there is a market for that. It's just that we don't, it's happening. It's just that we as end users, we do not see it. Also, there are a market for the 0 days. So I see it rather maybe it would impact those employees who are working in the companies when, if the company is losing bidding contract. But yeah, for me, it's kind of difficult to foresee how it will directly impact each of individuals, us.
Okay, thank you. David, please.
Well, yes, first I would like to give a small present for the project to my colleagues. A small present about the project. For you or for you? Thank you. And, well, if anybody wants to know about the project, okay, let us know. About the question, sorry for this. About the question, obviously, individuals might be affected by cybersecurity, cyber threats. I think if you take a newspaper, you can read a lot of pieces of news related to cybersecurity. But specifically, if we talk about industrial cybersecurity, maybe, I don't know, but obviously it depends on the problem, but maybe we can talk about a matter of life or death. I mean, so the impact is higher. But however, I would like to say that not talking only about the social impact of cybersecurity, but the awareness. I'm wondering how many people has clear in their mind the relationship between the industrial security and cyberspace and cyber threats. So I think the key point is not only talking about the social impact, but also awareness.
Okay, thank you. Evgeny, if you please.
I think that impact could be as huge as a new evolution driving factor. There is a rumor that evolution has stopped, but I think that the safety factor has recently become one of the evolution factors, and it would be not very good thing if the security problem domain would be not only the subject for IT security geeks to do with and to cope with, but to something which really has great influence on the people lifestyle and people lives. So I think in worst case for us, we are seeing an appearance of new evolution factor.
Thanks. Eric, please.
So it would be very easy to just agree to everyone to my right. Some great answers. I want to address this from a slightly different perspective. We think of the individuals and how they're impacted by industrial systems. We always think in terms of critical infrastructure. Obviously, if a critical infrastructure is damaged in some way, the people who rely on that infrastructure are going to be damaged, right? Safety, potential injury, loss of life. I think we all understand that. But there's more to industrial networking and industrial manufacturing than critical infrastructure. Ultimately, an industrial process is going to produce a product, and individuals, to some degree or another, are a consumer of that product. If you're creating a product that has no consumers, you probably won't have to worry about it because you'll go out of business. So there are impacts to individuals outside of, the potential of, blackouts and explosions and nationwide catastrophe. And I think probably some of the most important dependencies that I see individuals having today actually are the communication infrastructure itself. How many people here today have an iPhone or an Android device, have been tweeting? Our lives are very interconnected digitally. Our personalities, our personal brands, our reputations, and often our careers are very tied to lots of individual products and lots of global networks. So there's a significant and I think a really severe impact that an individual could have if something as silly as a consumer device were to become victim of a cyber attack. Certainly privacy implications. Okay, thank you. Well, let's go to the next question. That's the last months, personal devices like health monitors, glasses, watches, and many more wearables that are going to appear during the following months are connected to the internet. They have become common use devices, but the average user is not aware about the cybersecurity issues that are related to these items. How do you think this trend is going to evolve? Would you mind to start right now, Eric? Sure. So there's definitely a trend in new technology, new personal technology, wearable technology. Wearable technology has been around for a while. There are now two big players competing in the smartwatch category, and so we're going to see rapid growth and a lot of innovation there. Samsung and Apple, as they often do, are going to drive a lot of innovation because of their competition. And there's a couple of problems I see. The biggest one, I think, is that it's an introduction of new vectors. As we bring new computing devices with us, we carry them around. I have two smartphones. I used to have a Fitbit watch, but as you can probably tell, I don't wear it much. These things have processors, they have wireless interfaces, they are themselves an attack vector. And we may knowingly or unknowingly carry that vector around with us into places that we shouldn't.
Thank you. Evgeny, please.
My wife has recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, bought this bracelet for her iPhone. By the way, she's in security software development industry for more than 10 years. And I asked her whether she's afraid of some security impacts of sharing her data in some cloud. She told me she don't care. You know, a woman which is in security for quite a while don't care just because she does not see a threat to herself at the moment. I think that it is quite hard to predict the evolution of security measures for this kind of things. But I think I would agree with the wife. Maybe the first time since the beginning of this year that there is currently no big security issue with this kind of devices. Of course, if we are talking about some really medical devices, it might be the case, but it's not very popular, and it is somehow regulated, and we will be seeing new technologies protecting this particular type of devices which are under regulation.
Thank you. David, please.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned in my first speech, I think all the issues related to awareness and related to personal data, I think is crucial. In fact, I'm wondering if people are aware of how many of their information are public in internet and server or in application. Even ourselves, during this conference, we are tweeting a lot of photos, a lot of personal data, a lot of professional data from ourselves. So bearing in mind the new paradigms, new connectivity paradigms like machine-to-machine, smart everything like smart cities or more grids, I think try to control this trend is unstoppable. I think the key question will be this trend of everything is connected, where is going to lead us? I mean, let me make a reference to the first part of my presentation when we talk about the films, war games. But obviously it sounded strange 30 years ago, but if we take the current sci-fi films or now, for instance, the one that comes to my mind is Surrogates, one of also Sustitutos, I think, in Spanish, sorry. And it's a humanoid remote control vehicles in which replace people to interact each other. So maybe it sounds strange right now, but maybe in 30 years, in the long term, in the midterm, it's not so strange. So bear in mind that the people can only be hacked, not only be hacked, the data can be only hacked their lives. So I think it's crucially important.
Right, you have made the big question. Where is this going to lead us? I guess if we knew the answer, we wouldn't be here, probably.
Yeah, and maybe if we control this limit, I mean, because right now we can lose data. Well, more or less, but we can control our lives. But maybe in the long term, no. We can lose our lives.
Yes, right. Marina, please.
So when I was thinking about the answer to this question, I kind of tried to build a little bit of structure in my head. So first of all, in order to have a threat, we need somebody who is interested in hacking or attacking us. So, and mostly those are criminals, governments, and very little recreational hackers. So, for example, NSA and Google are already collecting the data about, it's called device social network. They're already collecting the data, who is where. So basically, whenever your phone, roaming around through your phone, they're collecting data about other devices based on the same antenna, IEEE 800.15, I guess. Basically, in order to know who is riding with whom in the bus, why they want to have those maps in order then to if you in the end the protocols are different, the antenna is the same, so you can construct through that antenna you can compromise one device and the idea is just like that the malware will propagate from one mobile to another, and to another wireless device. And that end device, like the target device, may be even like a wireless instrument in some critical infrastructure. And if you can infect that device of the plant engineer, then you are done. So and the more devices is there in use, so the easier task for the governments is there. So also with respect to the, for example, wireless, like smart meters, they're all wireless and they're supposed to mesh. So by, for example, in Germany by 2020, like all houses has to have smart meters, and they build a meshed wireless network. That's a communication path. So now the attackers are using, like criminals are using porn movies to transmit the data. So maybe they will be using smart meters, communication channels to transmit some sensitive data. And basically smart meters can also mesh with all the rest wireless devices because it's still the same antenna. The same antenna even used in the military domain. So the missiles, they still use the same antenna. Why? Because it's just reliable. It is already 20 years old technology. Also here I can see probably some like economic model, for those sort of recreational hackers. So you can provide professional like espionage or tracking services. Like if the wife is just like asking where is my husband going. So and again, the more we connected, the easier it is to determine. Also, like recently, like in 2009, there was already practical worm for smart meters, and this year we've seen attacks on the like on the traffic control systems because they also have wireless sensors. So this is both attacks came from the guys from IO Active, and now they have a plan to construct a multi-purpose worm. So they want to construct a worm which can propagate from meters to traffic control sensors. At the end, it is again on the physical layer, it is the same technology. So the more we connected, the more we're vulnerable. And again, maybe it is less for the end user, but we can be just kind of participating in that unwillingly. So, yes.
Thank you. Patrick, you too, please.
Great notes so far. I get the benefit of being at the end of the panel. I can just say all that stuff that they said. I'm going to add a bit to it. It's definitely an operational security fail. I mean, if you let someone into your plant that's a sensitive plant with wearable technology, there's a chance they could leave with some information that you don't want them leaving with, especially if they film or record. They're even using things in terms of auditory sensing, like determining specific location of recordings based on the ambient electric power signature in the air. So these types of, this is not unrealistic, this is actually happening. So there are some heads nodding that this happens. But that type of, those devices can record many more things and not just the, the sound of the power crackle in the ambient EM. So my concern is obviously the OPSEC fail that goes with this. But other things that, you hit on this a little bit, is that data is money. And the recreational hackers will follow the money. There's no doubt about that. Now, if Facebook and Google can make untold billions on my hair smells great because this new shampoo, they're going to make much more money off of anything else you do. So all of your other habits that are going to get recorded in these things will become essentially small banks because data is money. So you're wearing a small bank. That's the way to think about this. That's the reality. I think eventually the technology will not be visible. It will be invisible. You will not see it. It will be so small. It'll be so inconspicuous. I mean, look up, if you don't think this is real, look up a paper from MIT on smart dust. Literally smart dust. They're incredibly tiny computers that can perform amazing sensory applications. So this will go away. You will not be able to see it, and it will contain a massive amount of data in very small bits that become much easier and more exposed to hack, because the smaller something gets, the greater its surface area becomes. You're increasing the attack surface to lots of small bits of money.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Patrick. Let's go to...
one more thing.
Yeah.
One more note. I also like the idea of being able to flash up a card with someone wearing Google glasses and infect them with a QR code, just for fun.
Okay, right. Let's go to the next question. All we know that there are sectors and industries that have an obvious potential of high impact over the society, say energy, oil and gas, chemical, and so on. But what are those sectors and industries that are not being taken into account and that will be relevant during the upcoming years? What's that we are not thinking about right now? David, would you like to start?
No.
David, please.
If you want. Yeah, if you want, no problem. Well, I guess if I were to choose between the sectors, I guess the primary sectors. I think sectors related to agriculture, related to fishing, or related to cattle. Obviously, I'm not expert in these areas, but I got a feeling that the activities in these areas mostly are manual. But imagine if all these activities is turned into automatically processed. I mean, imagine to milk cows automatically, all the process, and to showing and collect products, or I don't know, but maybe automatic fishing boats. I mean, and try to imagine, and at that point, obviously, on the basis of my experience, nobody is going to think security. Forget it. I think it's not sounds stupid. So, but imagine the chaotic situation. You can control the cows, you can control the products, even, I don't know, but maybe you can create losing crops, or even you can create another flavors of crazy cows, I don't know.
Great, thank you. Marina, please, your opinion.
Yeah, yeah, again, I don't believe in so that somebody will really be trying to take the grid down, or maybe making refineries exploding, but probably, and also because many nations have declared that the act, the cyber attack against their critical infrastructure, will be an act of war. Therefore, probably if somebody will go, they go for the smaller system, which causes kind of annoyance, and it's difficult to predict which could be those systems, and will it be road traffic control? Maybe, if in certain scenario it will be necessary, then maybe. I don't think that it will be a massive or regular hack, because what for? Maybe for example, one of the examples what I was thinking about is satellite systems. There have been already practical hack on the satellite system, and for example, big oil containers, they are not kind of driven, or how to say, managed by a captain anymore. The captain is there, but they're completely navigated by the satellite system, and basically the captain does not even know what to do anymore. So by taking out the satellite system, you're just losing the entire ship, which is expensive, and you lose oil and so on. So that would be powerful attack. I don't know whether somebody would go for the airplane systems, because it's civilians are involved and it's kind of ugly, and I don't know if somebody would do it. So yeah, probably smart metering system. Yes, well, this is what I think.
Okay, thank you. Patrick, please.
Yeah, food technologies. So was one of the areas I was thinking. We're moving to a state where automation is entering into the farming business in droves. It's I hate to use the term greenfield, but that's what it is. The robot farming techniques are amazing, and there's probably going to be the biggest growth in drone usage is in farming, oddly enough. Whether it's pesticides or monitoring, there's all kinds of different things that they're using them for. But it's hard work, and people don't want to do it, so the robots will do it. And at some point, we'll trust the robots to do it, and that's when we fail, because then we can obviously impact that greatly. So how far out that is, that's still we're looking at 5 to 10 years, realistically. In the meantime, I do think chemical, is an issue, just because of the fact that the processes are so tightly controlled, and small perturbations in those controlled processes can have catastrophic issues. But it also affects precursors to other manufacturing problems, warfare, you name it. We use chemistry in ways that you don't understand how much it's used in your day-to-day life. But I think that's an area that's probably going to get a bit more attention. But I think most importantly is manufacturing. It sounds kind of mundane, but the reality is people they hack for there are a lot of reasons, but you boil it down, it gets down to about two: ideology or money. And ideology hacks are going to be catastrophic. They're going to do things for lots of, media attention, loss of life. The money hacks rarely want to have anything like that. They don't want you to know they're in your system. They'll hack into a poorly managed server and actually clean it up. But they'll fix your stuff so you won't know that they're there. Now, the money is in manufacturing. It's going to be probably espionage and making things cheaper and getting a competitive edge in the global market. So I would say there's a lot of drive in manufacturing and proprietary information, because there's so much of that stuff going on right now in terms of theft. It's just, we don't know who owns what anymore. And it's getting to where whatever you had as a company is going to erode within seconds in terms of your proprietary information. So I still think there's a lot of work to be done in that space. We'll have bigger issues there to come.
Yeah, sure. Eric, please. Yeah.
So this is a difficult question to answer, obviously. What other industries are going to have an impact? And a couple of very good points have been made. When we think of industrial systems and how industrial systems work, they're not an asset or a system. There are lots of assets and there are lots of systems and they're interconnected and they have a process and it's all very controlled and we understand it very well. But whole industries are also interconnected. There are dependencies upon other industries that can be used as an attack vector to one of those large critical infrastructure industries. Marina mentioned one, which is satellites. GPS spoofing has actually been successfully used not just to make a ship go blind, but they've actually been able to successfully alter the navigation of a yacht. So replace yacht with oil tanker, and you have actually stolen a physical product. GPS spoofing has also been used in lab environments to trip a power plant by spoofing the synchronization of the phaser data that's coming in from the distributed phaser management systems in the smart grid. So there are these dependent industries that we take for granted. GPS and satellite is definitely one of them. Building systems is one. How many people have a data center that they're responsible for keeping up and running? Those data centers have air conditioning systems, and they have big air conditioning systems for a reason, because there's a lot of power in there. There's lots of switching and routing and big multiprocessor servers and blade systems, and that all generates a lot of heat. If you can take out the air conditioning in a data center, the best case scenario is there'll be a controlled shutdown by your smart power system. That's the best case. The worst case is that you trick that somehow and you actually cause systems to fail. And then you'll have hardware failures in your data center, and that's a pretty severe denial of service attack.
Right, thank you. Evgeny, please.
I think that if we will be trying to answer this question from very, very strict definition perspective, then it is almost, at the moment, almost no industry which is taken into account properly. And we will see many security problems being solved for each of the industries. But the main things that will influence our day-to-day lives, I mean, not the security professionals, but an ordinary man day-to-day lives, is all that smart metering systems. How do you protect your electricity consumption data at the moment at your home? How do you protect your car? The things that the industrial security which will enter your home, the industrial security which will enter your car. And of course, all those smart buildings and all these building SCADA things. I was recently talking to marketing guy from one of the world biggest vendor who provides who produces color for buildings, and he told to me that situation with the security awareness and with the security problem domain understanding there is way worse than that in an ordinary industry controlling systems. So this two are, I think, are the more waiting for us and more upcoming.
Thank you. Now let's go for the last question. It's a quick one. What kind of actions do you think should be taken in the short term to improve the general knowledge that society has about industrial cybersecurity? Marina, would you like to start?
Well, I have been doing that since last 4.5 years. I'm teaching security, network security, software security, application security, introduction to security. And I can tell that even for IT guys, I'm teaching IT people, IT students, master students, it's not easy. It's not easy. 50% people fail. Most of them go through the third attempt, and therefore, like short term, I don't know what can improve. We just can continue doing what we are doing. And one of the reasons that is just like the security issues developed so quickly and they arose so quickly that we are mentally not adapted to it. Probably even not myself. Physical security is something which we grew up as a kids. Our parents have taught us, close the door, close the window, like put a lock on your bicycle when you leave it on the street. And this cyber security is something that we still really, it's very intangible. If you've never been a victim, you probably even don't understand it. How does it look like? What is it? And so basically, you even only start worrying about your bicycle after it got stolen. So you start understanding that you need a better protection. So if you've never been a victim, it's kind of hard. And maybe even like it will probably sound weird, but the more like personal accidents, like stolen money, stolen identities happen, the more people will become aware. I think this recent leak of Apple with its nudity pictures and iCloud, I think it's really, really like very, how to say, tangible. People can understand the implication, and I'm pretty confident that a lot of people will look in their devices and tune whether, am I synchronized with this iCloud, and what is that iCloud anyway? Therefore in the short term, I guess there is not really much can be done. I sent my parents to computer, computer classes, so this is like what I said I could do in short term for them.
Thank you. David, if you please.
Okay, I fully agree with my colleague Marina. I think if I were to get two actions, I think one is related to rating, security rating, and another one related to education. And security rating, I think we can do pretty much the same we are doing in economic rating. I mean, if the companies, entity, or governments are not doing the things right well in their management, they're receiving a low rating. So before you're doing anything with this company, you know the solvency of the company, of the entity, or government. So we need to find a way to give this score to the companies, but related to industrial cybersecurity. I mean, there is a rules. Obviously, we need to improve this rule, but there is a rules. So if one company are not following these rules, we need to lower score. So if you are going to do business with this company, you need to know this score. And another topic, I fully agree with my colleague Marina, education. I'm not really sure if education at the primary level, the secondary level, university, but we need to find a way. We need to find a way to people are aware of not only the opportunities of the technology, but also the risks of the technology. I don't know. I have no idea of the way to teach this kind of things, but the people need to understand the risks are behind of this kind of technology.
That idea of the cybersecurity rating, it's quite interesting, but I guess it could be quite controversial also.
Yeah, but at the same in economics, I mean.
Totally,
if
yes.
you are receiving a AAA or something like that, okay, maybe you are not agree. But anyway, there is a rules. If someone doesn't follow the rules, you need to receive anything. I don't know.
That's right. Evgeny, please.
Do you remember who have told you not to touch the fire? Who have told you not to put your fingers into electricity socket? I think that the best practice to teach the security is to teach yourself and to teach your children. I think that the next generation would be much just way more virtual than our generation, and this cybersecurity knowledge is much more vital for them than for us. So if you love your children, educate yourself and then educate them.
Thanks. Eric, please.
This is going to sound a little bit like a skipped record. Education is definitely the key, increasing security awareness. But when we're talking about improving awareness to society, to the broader public, we have challenges, just this small community, educating ourselves about the dangers of cybersecurity in industrial systems, educating the public about the cybersecurity dangers of industrial systems is really difficult because they don't necessarily understand cybersecurity to begin with. They don't understand industrial systems and power grids and all of that. And the only outlets to get the information to them is through the media. And the media doesn't understand those two things either. The subject matter experts are the ones creating the content. There aren't many, there are a few, but there aren't many subject matter experts who are actually vetting content and distributing content and publishing content. So I mean, we're just early in a life cycle of education. So again, starting young, people need to understand security better. We need to understand security better, and we just keep needing to increase awareness. Even the basics are important.
Thank you. And last but no least, of course.
Thank you. It sounds like we don't have an education problem. It sounds like we have a marketing problem. So I would just throw that out there for thought. I mean, you get people to adopt behaviors by making them a rhyme. You get people to change their day-to-day lives with simple bits of information that make sense to them, that impact them directly. I think the message is out there. You tell them your lights go out if you do this. You know, but they don't have to understand why. And that's the point I think I'm trying to make is I could care less if they understand really why. And reality is, could they? Could you really get a message across to all of them in a way that they can impart or really get a grasp of all this knowledge in this room? Right? The average consumer or average person on the street, probably not. They wouldn't want to, first of all. But you know, it's just a matter of getting it marketed to them so that they can at least begin to change their behaviors in more effective ways. So that usually requires making the message sound like something they want to hear and do. So it sounds like we have a marketing problem, really. I think there's lots of good education. There's plenty of good material out there. We've got some brilliant minds writing really good stuff. It's just it hasn't been put on a bumper sticker on the back of someone's car that you giggle about when you're driving down the freeway. That's what it needs to get at some point, where it can just get digested by the masses. I do think that you hit on something here with Marina, the breach data. If we don't have enough breach data into these areas. I mean, honestly, if you have an industrial control systems incident, you're going to make it look like some kind of physical accident, right? In the electric sector, we have this thing called the ground squirrel, and that's basically a dead squirrel you keep in your truck. In case you can't figure out why the substation faulted, you just throw it in the ground and take a picture and say, oh, squirrel. You know, you have this excuse, but it's never really the equipment failed, or you did something wrong, or you were sleeping on your break, or whatever it might be. But we've got this culture of the ground squirrel in all the industrial environments where We don't really track these things well. If it's a mechanical issue, we've got really good investigation. We do a lot of event analysis and mean time between failure scenarios, lots of good physics stuff there. But if there was ever malice involved, or the question of malice involved, we don't really ferret that out much. We don't investigate very deeply. And even if we did, we don't prosecute and we don't track the data. So we end up basically making these visceral gut risk decisions about these things upon which we have no real data. So effectively, we're making very risky guesses with our industrial control systems without this data. There's just no other way to get there. We know that, you know, if Nacho drinks every day and eats terrible food, he's going to die by the age of 50, right? But we have that not just because, you know, that's what we've seen happen, because there's mountains and mountains of empirical medical data to show that. We need that. We need that in our environment as well, so we can really begin making educated risk decisions in these areas. Are we spending our money in the right places? We don't know. We have no idea. No clue.
Thanks so much. Marina wants to add something.
No, I want to oppose a little bit.
Okay,
I am not very much, like this marketing, you know, we all know. I find like healthy lifestyle so sexy.
Right.
But do I do it? No. I mean, I'm well aware and it's properly marketed. It's just like, I don't have time, I don't care, I don't know, whatever, it's hard. So, and for example, I am well aware about all security issues. Most of my friends are so hardcore hackers, they know how to defend and everything, and I probably also know how to defend, and I'm just not doing it. I'm lazy. So, therefore, I'm educated, and marketing is there because all my friends are marketed to me. Unless something terribly bad happened to me, like this, I leak with the photos kind of scared me. That's true, but like I cannot even imagine that my photos will pop up somewhere. But otherwise, until it affects me physically, that it hurts, I will not do anything.
But I've heard the term cyber hygiene, and that's kind of some of the approach. I don't think it's a very good fit, but we've also referred to this as basically as the brushing and flossing. The dentist says you should do it. You know it'll make your teeth last longer, but no one really ever does it. You know, so yeah, the mechanic's car is never fixed, the painter's house is never painted. These are standard problems that we run into. But yeah, I do agree that it's education and marketing, but I think the message has still got to be cultivated, and in order to reach a wider audience and get a wider spread, it's got to be spoken in the right words.
The education needs to transcend to the point where it becomes part of our culture. Cyber hygiene is a great example. If somebody handed you a filthy piece of something that was covered with flies and goo, you would recoil. Right, you wouldn't want to touch it. But if somebody hands you a USB stick, you say, oh, excellent, thank you, and you plug it in your computer. We need to understand the risks of technology to the point where it becomes a cultural response that we see technology with a certain degree of skepticism. And that hasn't happened yet. I want to comment on the term marketing. I understand what you meant on that. We have to get the message in a way that people consume it.
Yeah.
But the term marketing actually kind of tweaked me a little bit.
It rubs everyone
way.
the wrong way. That's why I said it, though.
Right. So part of the problem with education is that there are a lot of businesses and individuals even that market themselves against what they see as a perceived cash-heavy market. Mm-hmm. When Stuxnet was first announced to the broad public, it was not long before the RSA conference. And the RSA conference is a very large security conference in San Francisco. And I remember walking the floor and counting. I started counting how many vendor booths claimed they had a solution for Stuxnet. And I stopped counting because, quite frankly, it got too difficult to keep track. Almost all of them. Ridiculous. I mean, people who did storage were claiming they had a solution for Stuxnet. So marketing in the classic, business sense of marketing can actually cloud the issue a lot.
Well, take it another way. Chris, one sec. Take it another way. For example, the game you guys have that teaches industrial cybersecurity. That is an effective use of marketing for this topic. That's where I'm trying to take the point.
Yeah. I have to chime in on this one. I think actually Patrick's entirely right, but I think the point is we need to market to the right people. It's not the average user, really, the person who has anything to do with this, the policymakers and others. But I'm sitting here thinking about the questions in my panel and this one, and this is a great conversation. And I want to rephrase some of the questions and get your thoughts on it, because, you know, I'm finding that you know, I had the same sort of answers with Nacho's first question. You know, can't really see, you know, the countries tearing each other's grids apart and so forth. You know, we talk about this 3-year time frame, and I just think in 3 years we have to have gotten to a certain point or we're in serious trouble. 5, 7 years. So let me try phrasing it like this. You know, we say, you know, China and the U.S. aren't really going to go at it unless they're firing missiles as well. You know, cyber war is war. War is war. But you start to look at it different ways. Well, what about China and Taiwan? What about the Ukraine and Russia? You know, what about talking about the smalls? You know, what about Russia and NATO countries, but not the grid, the manufacturing and the others? You know, this 5-year time frame. And as you know, sort of newsy and sensational as it is, what about 24 months from now if, you know, the allied countries do really good against ISIS and they take $100 million and put it into these things? So I guess the question is, are we being a little bit too Pollyanna? You know, are we afraid of saying that, honestly, in 5 years, I really perhaps could see really awful things done?
We have already actually kind of seen that just recently. An article, I saw it on Twitter, so it must be true. I haven't verified it myself. I don't know if anybody's dug into this and knows the facts, but I think it was just last week that there was a news headline that China had deployed malware in Hong Kong to capture data from people's mobile devices, including their location. So here you have an incident, an unverified incident as far as I know, where a government might actually be using wearable devices. We keep coming back to wearable devices and the Internet of Things and mobile security, where this isn't a war necessarily, it's a dissidence perhaps, but we're seeing the use of technology to aggressively control an opponent. So I think we're already seeing it. I think it's only reasonable to assume it's going to get worse.
Right. We have listened to very interesting opinions, and we have raised very interesting topics. We have a question.
Yeah. So if I could defend my chosen occupation's good name before Chris. So marketing. So you weren't here earlier. So yeah, I always joke that I've been sliding down the scale from IT to sales to marketing. But I think to Patrick's point, you know, there has to be, I do think, because you guys weren't here earlier when I was presenting, I noticed. But, you know, talking about how we get the message out to people who don't do what we do as a profession. It's all very clear to us because this is what we do. Other people don't do what we do. So I think to Patrick's point, you know, that we do have to find a way to get the message out there. And I also think, too, when it comes to, say, ICS and the grid, I'm not really worried about getting the message out to the public. You know, it's my parents aren't going to take anything down outside their house, because then they'll call me and ask me to fix it. You know, so but I think getting that out there, I do think making it digestible and in smaller chunks that somebody can at least get makes sense to me. So that's kind of my defensive marketing.
One, Marina, and one last question.
Somebody's got to shut a mic off so she can
like
speak.
Kind of to appeal to that we need to address right people. Again, I'm teaching IT like students, like each semester probably 300 students for 4.5 years. Our institute at the university has a worst reputation. They hate us. They hate us so much you can't even imagine. They say, oh, security is so hard, it's impossible, we hate it, we don't understand it. You know, I'm jumping just around with all examples, extra hours, extra consultation hours to explain. And they think my professor is evil. They think I am nice, but the subject is evil. And we have 6th attempts, we are addressing the right audience. And you know what? I had a student in 6th attempt who is working part-time at a vendor who are programming some field devices. And he could not, at the 6th attempt, he could not explain what buffer overflow is. Not even defensing or any like advanced, but not even a buffer overflow. He's programming field devices for a vendor. I don't know about marketing. Let's say I am skeptical from personal experiences.
It's definitely hard to do, right? To package it in a way that people can both understand and accept. I mean, we all work in security. How many people have had the situation where their parent has asked them, what is it you do for a living? And what do you say? I've started just saying it's classified because that way I don't have to even try. But it's hard to explain, it really is. It would be a benefit to the industry if we could figure that out.
I think we need to make a distinction. Marketing for sales versus marketing to get a message and to change behavior, because there's a difference there. And I think marketing to change behavior is really where I'm focusing in terms of
sorry, I guess Patrick now is like in the middle. Everyone has something to argue against what he said. Just a small mention. I mean, you said that there's plenty of information that can be used to teach other students and whatsoever. I agree there's plenty, but personally, and I'm talking from my experience and also from experience at the agency, it's very difficult to find. I mean, if you want to, let's say you're a newbie, as the other guy was talking, you want to find out what's a worm. You'll find plenty of definitions in different cases, in different contexts and so on. So for someone who comes, let's say, fairly new to this area, it might be very difficult to find an approach to, let's just say, go directly to the definition and understand the concepts. On the other hand, for the SCADA, for example, or ICS, I guess you noticed I always mention ICS SCADA, and I do this for two reasons. First, that SCADA is more accepted by even the ones that don't work in there. They know. They hear SCADA, they make the connection. And it was a period in which we were thinking about working on a taxonomy or something like this to be used, at least internally, to know exactly what are we talking about when we're saying SCADA, when we're saying ICS, we're talking about PLCs, RTUs, EEDs, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, just to sum up, it's a little bit too fuzzy, maybe, at this moment, the conversations that exist.
Yes?
Last comment. What really, I have no answer, but what I noticed, and so on one hand, like, Chris mentioned, like, we've seen already such sophisticated attacks. So we have like really two groups, and this gap is really increasing. On one hand, I have those stupid students, sorry, in my, which...
I hear you say that now.
Don't tell them. And on the other hand, we have those like guys who are working for the governmental solution, or like guys at the IO Active, who are given just a week time to recover a private key from any firmware on the planet. So, and this gap seems to be increasing only. So this is probably what I find scary. So those guys who aware of the benefits of being security aware, they don't need to be educated and don't need to be marketed. They're just doing it. And those who don't want, they're just irresponsive to all of our attempts.
Last one. Now for sure.
Yeah, and talking about education, I think this is a very interesting topic. But I'm just thinking, when I listen to my colleagues, I think the average user in general, but even in our companies, but I think it's not a good approach to try to everyone get a security certificate, understand all the things related to security. I think the good approach is try to understand the risks. The risks are behind technology. I mean, if you are sure your personal photograph with your children, or maybe you are you're writing your mobile phone as secondary authentication mechanism or something like that in webs, you need to understand this information are public. So a third party are using this information, even you're still your identity. So the idea is not to everyone in our company get a security certificate and understand all the things about security. But you need to understand the risks. I mean, if you write down a password in a blackboard, okay, you need to understand, you need to borrar, I don't know, but you need to clean the dashboard after the meeting. I think it's quite easy to explain to people the risks are behind the technology.
Okay, thank you. It's a pity, but we are going to have to leave it here because these people will want to go away in the near future. It's been a huge pleasure to listen to you today, so thank you very much. Un fuerte aplauso, por favor.